The May 20th, 2024 meeting of the Jackson County Library District Board is called to order. We have a roll call, please.
Absolutely. We have present Vicky Brown,
Here.
Kim Young,
Here.
Susan Kiefer, here. Marissa Shepherd,
Here.
Kevin Keating.
Here. Thank you. And welcome to staff that are joining us in the room and guests and virtually. Okay. If you would join me in thought while I read the JCLS land acknowledgement. Jackson County Library Services acknowledges that its libraries are located within the traditional lands of the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians and the Modoc Nation, as well as the Shasta, Takelma, and Lagawa people, whose descendants are now identified as members of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians and the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. We take this moment to recognize the indigenous peoples whose traditional lands are where residents of Jackson County live today. JCLS is committed to fostering understanding, deep respect, and honor for indigenous people, and we encourage you to learn more about the land you reside on. For more information, go to jcls.org/land. Okay. Do you have any introductions?
I do not.
Okay,
Everybody looks familiar up there.
okay, that's a good thing. And we do not have any proclamations today. Are there any adjustments that people would like in the agenda, moving something from consent to some other location on the agenda, or?
I have one thing that maybe we could add to the agenda. I'd like to have us at least start thinking about dates for our summer planning retreat. I don't know. I don't suppose we could set one just yet, but it'd be nice to start thinking about it.
Probably do that in the future meetings
Yeah.
category. Okay. Yeah, summer gets to be challenging.
Yes, and I have things that are, I need to schedule.
Right. Okay. Anything else or agenda? Okay. Okay, and we do not have any members of the public wishing to speak as far as I am aware, so. Correct. Okay, so we will, well, actually, I would appreciate a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Thanks. Okay. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, if you could speak your vote, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Kim gave
See ya.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, the consent agenda is approved. Okay, to reports, the library director's report, which you all received. Not all, but the board members all received.
Yes, so before we get to the written report, I'd like to invite Eric Malinsky, our digital services supervisor, to come forward and give you a little bit of information about our digital services team. Eric and Carrie Turney Ross gave a presentation at the Oregon Library Association conference that was lovely and gave us a lot of information about the program, and both Kevin and Susan were able to be at that conference and learn more, and they said, we should hear more from you, Eric, and so here he is.
I'll try not to repeat myself too much, so that those of you heard it, it's the same.
Reinforcement's a good thing.
Oh,
You
that
need to
is true.
speak up so that people on the virtual understand you, please.
Just waiting for the
For the technology.
technology. So I can actually start. So to start, in 2019, there was a groundbreaking education that was designed by the Digital US Coalition that was called Digital Navigator Services. And it was adapted and scaled through partners such as the National Digital Inclusion Alliance and Education to address both digital access as well as learning, upskilling, and at a scale. It was deployed in part at some public libraries, and it's very helpful during the pandemic. The description of the program is, this is from the Digital US website. It says digital navigators are individuals who address the digital inclusion process with community members through repeated interactions. So why am I telling you about this program, not our program? Well, in 2012, JCLS developed the seeds of what became our current digital services department. And so we could say that while that program was huge, it was very much needed, that we actually were a little bit ahead of the curve at JCLS. So we wanted to share with you some of what Carrie and I presented at OLA about digital services and let you know what we've been up to for the last 12 years. So if we can move on to the first slide. So in 2012, we saw the digital divide here as involved with reading technology. So there was, between 2010 and 2012, there was a 400% increase in Jackson County in e-reading. We were part of the Oregon Digital Library Consortium. We had the Library to Go website, and that was getting huge use here in Jackson County. And so with that increased usage of ebooks, there was a big increase in questions and confusion, both on how to get books and what to do with them, how to use them. People had them. And so we could see there was a need. So we formed what at the time was called Patron Technical Support. And it was, at the time, it was one person, me, who kind of was charged with helping people with that, what we called at that time, the digital divide. And so let's see, let's go ahead and go on to the next slide, sorry. At the time then, we started with what we could do then. So I worked at that 2 full days per week, and then I did other duties 3 days. So in that time, we developed classes, taught classes in helping people with Library to Go and ebooks in general. We created help content, both in digital format and in print format. And then we could help some people who were walk-ins personally, but on a limited basis. So I worked 3 days a week in branches. And as I said, 2 days a week doing this, prepping classes and content, things like that. So if I was in a branch on Wednesday and you happened to come in and you needed help, I could help. So that's kind of how it worked at the time. And as we went on with that, we eventually were able to have another part-time person that worked some of the time with it. But we could see right away that there was a lot more need for knowledge than just with the ebooks and things. As we had classes, we could see that people were interested, needed to know more about there was a lot wider digital divide than just involved with reading. So we did develop classes at the time for cybersecurity, internet privacy and safety, for social media, things like that. And they were very popular and very well attended. So we had a few of those that we programmed. And then if we could move on to the next slide. So during that program, what did we learn? Well, we learned what we could do. We could provide content to a group, both in digital or print format, as well as those classes that we did. We could do some limited outreach. We actually did form a relationship with a couple of schools We were able to help Medford School District a little when they decided to have their own Overdrive company that provides that Library to Go software, their own website. But we couldn't do a lot of one-on-one with our patrons. We just didn't have the resources, staff to be able to do that. And we basically had gone as far as we could with the community engagement that we were able to do at the time. So what was our next step? Well, if we move on to the next slide. So we were able to create something called digital services. In 2014, what was created was what you are all here helping to guide, Jackson County Library District. So we were finally able to have the resources, both in staff and in time to spend on the help that we wanted to give. So in 2017, digital services was created. And as you can see there, as we have gone on, we've developed a three-pronged approach. We first started out with digital services. We concentrated on the one-on-one assistance. We made sure that we were in the branches, providing that help to people on the ground when they needed it, where they needed it. And that was really the focus of what we did, and people loved it. They really wanted that. Appointments increased quickly during that time, and over time, first few years, even over 1,000 per year. With less, we started out with 2 full-time staff plus a supervisor. And then we fast forward a few years later, and we were in the support services department at that time. A few years later, our director was Carrie May, and she had the foresight to realize that we really needed to be in the public services department. And so that change was made. And at the same time, we got a new manager who had a passion for a vision for outreach, and that was Carrie Turney Ross. And so with those things happening, it's kind of how we got to where we are now. So we go on to the next slide. And our core now is still one-on-one assistance. It's what people want and need, and so it's really where we focus our efforts. So that can be in person mostly. We're still in the branches every week. In almost all of our branches every week. We go to Prospect and Butte Falls every other week. And in some branches, multiple times per week, our busiest branches. Just as a little factoid, you probably guess that Medford and Ashland are pretty busy, but our third busiest branch in terms of appointments is Jackson. So kind of never know, but so we go where we're needed. And we give people 2 1-hour appointments every month in order to kind of spread the wealth. And for a couple of other reasons, have had sometimes developed groupies, which can be fun, but so we limit it a little bit. That's the core of what we do. But we're able to add with the resources we have and as we've grown. So we have now 7 full-time people plus supervisor. So if we go on to the next slide, we have been able to expand on the programming that we do. So we've offered that at branches, whereas we used to kind of choose what we did. A lot of the subjects now can be patron-driven, even though we still come up with some of the things as well. And we find that our programming supports our one-on-one because people come to the programs and then decide they need more information. So really it kind of drives them to the library. So it works well. And as you can see, we've expanded our subjects. An upcoming program we have is helping people with MyChart. The team was trained a few years ago by Asante in how to sign people up and using MyChart. So we'll be doing that class. It just kind of the pandemic slowed everything down. We've developed an apps and apps class, which is something that Carrie was familiar with from her former library. So apps and apps is applications and appetizers. So we're showing people the JCLS apps and getting them in with food, which usually seems to work well. And then something that's current, we're doing right now that actually a team member, Nicole Vuksevic, developed is preparing their digital legacy. So at first we thought, well, maybe this is a little bit morbid, but it's proved to be really popular. So people think about a will, but they don't often think about what happens with my digital life when my life ends. And so this helps them with that. I think we've had 4 classes so far and over 40 total attendance with that. So that's going well. And then finally, if we move to the next slide, what we're really focusing on now too is outreach and partnerships. And this is where, again, Carrie Attorney Ross's vision has really helped us to kind of look at this in a different way and how we can affect the community. So as it says, we try to meet community members where they are. We expand library services that way. We're able to work with underserved communities. So a lot of our focus is on seniors. A lot of help is needed there. So that's a big focus. And the picture you see there is of our partnership with Ashland Senior Center, classes we conduct there. We did have a one-on-one arrangement with them pre-pandemic, but now we're able to offer monthly classes. We've added additional classes. We do a kind of a computer basics class with them, plus some extra things in programming. One of the things that we're doing right now that we're most excited about is with a nonprofit called Golden Rule Reentry, and they help formerly incarcerated ones to kind of get a foothold, get reestablished in the community, and they're a safe space for those ones. And so we're actually able to help them with technology. Some of them have been incarcerated for up to 15 years. So if you think about it, if you were away from society for 15 years, somebody handed you a smartphone, it could be a little bit frustrating to figure out what to do with it. So we're able to go there and have, basically it's become like a once a month branch where we have appointments, and help ones who need various technological things like smartphones, tablets and whatnot. So it really helps us, or really excites us, because we're actually able to play a small role, at least, in reducing recidivism. And that's something that I never thought I would be involved in this department, having that kind of impact on the community. So that's something that, again, as we move forward, more the kind of things we would like to do. And if you get a chance to look at the video that was created, you'll see some of the information presented by the community members that were interviewed for that and how they benefited from those appointments. So that's a nice thing to be able to pull out of that. If we go on to the next slide. So, and then coming up, what are we doing? Well, there's a new computer classroom here in Medford. It's taken a little bit longer than what we wanted to, but with finally getting all the things, we'll have a smart screen in there, hopefully set up within the next week or so. We want to do more demos at tabling events, kind of some exploring of AI, pros and cons of it. One of the things that digital navigators do is to help with connectivity. So Carrie and myself and Parvana Scoggin, Jason White are all members of the RVPAT, the Rogue Valley Broadband Access Team. We're still kind of working with education, but still a group trying to focus on that access for people. And then who knows for the future, things we're planning. So that's a really quick update of digital services, where we've been and what we're doing and where we're going.
Thank you, Eric.
Are you
Any
connected?
questions?
Do you work with the Dart Band?
We have, yeah, we provide support. We want to do more of that. That's some more of that tabling at events and more help with them at events. But yeah, we do work along with that.
And you mentioned that Medford School District is also utilizing Overdrive, so is that with their own library materials or?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's actually, when I think about it, it's the ESD, Education
Oh,
Service. It was 549C. And I think the ESD finally decided to I'm not sure if they took it over or if they each have their own, but a lot of them is the ESD now. And they do have their own materials they purchase through.
And that is something that we're working with some of the school districts. I can't remember if it's in this report or not, but we have reached out to some of the schools. They have a school collection of Overdrive, and then there's a product at Overdrive called Sora, SORA, which stands for something super clever, I'm sure. But that's a way to integrate our collection with the school's collections and provide access to more titles by connecting them to our library to go. So that is something that we've started to partner, and that's district by district, but the connection is made through the Southern Oregon Education Services District.
How many school districts are there in Jack?
9. I say that confidently, is that right?
It's 9 or 11.
Yeah. Around 10, how's that?
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't sure.
And with the schools, so I mean, is this digital content for staff and students, or who's the audience?
It's not separate from our class, or you mean the school content itself?
Right.
More for the students, but
Oh,
our collection that we're sharing through Sora is targeted towards the students and giving them access to the kids and teens. I mean, they can access all of it, but specifically for those kids and teens resources for them. Thank you, Eric.
thank you.
So just to kind of piggyback on the highlights from OLA, as I said, Eric and Carrie did a presentation at the conference, and we are working on getting that video up on our website too, so that you all can see that. We had another panel of 3. We had Ryan Bradley, Monica Owens, and Evelyn Lawrence give a presentation about the Oregon Battle of the Books and the local program that we've created, the UBOB, which was very well received by the attendees at that program. And then Briston Strong, our programs coordinator, also was on a panel presentation about passive programming at the library. And with the 13 individuals who are at the conference, plus our staff, our board members, people noticed that we were there. So it was nice to have that strong presence and to have that recognition of the commitment that we are making to libraries and professional development in our library system. And I like to do some fun highlights. And it may seem small, but adding the new book locker to our, not book locker, cell phone charging station at the Ashland Library. We had tested out a model a couple of years ago at both Medford and Ashland. It proved to break more easily than they advertised. So we're trying a different model in Ashland, and I believe we're planning to order a similar model here for Medford because it does seem to be more indestructible, but fun technology helping provide better services at our branch. Are there any other questions about the content in the director's report?
Well, I'm just curious on the cell phone thing. So is it a secure plan? Okay.
Yes, yeah, so they put their thing in there, plug it in, and then they can lock that door, walk away, let it charge for an hour or 2, come back, and voila, their phone is still there and fully charged.
Right.
Yeah, excellent work as usual. I got some comments in the community about the Star Wars Day at Central Point. That was a big success. And then a lot of people were telling me too that they have a relationship with their librarian. So they say like the librarian knows them. So yeah, good work.
Yeah.
These for digital services.
Yeah.
That's any other questions for Carrie or comments? Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Don't worry, I get to do the next several
Right,
reports.
good.
People are on vacation. So next up is just the strategic plan dashboard. This is just giving you a snapshot of where we are on some of the strategies and objectives related to each of the goal areas. So just want to share that information with you and see if you had any questions. I do want to point out, and I meant to point this out during my report, director's report, but we did post the community listening session to our YouTube channel. We created a sub channel on our YouTube channel for board meetings and presentations. And so you will find both the community listening session from the facilities master plan, as well as the last board meeting and the budget committee meeting from last week. So we have 3 or 4 recordings posted up there, and we will continue to post meetings after they have been just edited for sound quality, make sure that people can hear us when they listen to that audio recording on our website.
I have a question about the dashboard. It seems like just about everything is on track / completed, but do we have sort of more thorough metrics so that we can see what exactly led to the check mark saying that it's completed
Progress.
and we don't really know whether they're on track or completed, so.
Right.
But so I was just wondering if. I'm sure if I went back through my old stuff more, I could find it, but I did a little, but.
So we do a more thorough presentation twice a year. And I believe, I'm looking at Kelda, I think we're looking at August so that we can have the full fiscal year report as part of that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions on our strategic plan progress?
Seeing any hands? So expanded hours report.
Yes. We have another PowerPoint for you. And after the meeting, I'd be happy to share this with you all as well. Getting a little hot in here. Too many presentations in a row. So we just thought that with April of 2024 representing the first full year since we expanded our service hours of operation, that we would take a look back and see how far we've come, what results have come from that. And just want to recognize our resident data analyst, Regina, for helping pull all of this information together. And both Regina and Kelda are here to help make sure I get everything right. So let's go on to the second slide here. So we're going to talk a little bit about how and why we expanded our hours, and then some of those highlights of how things have gone since we expanded our hours. So just a reminder.
I keep getting pop-up saying the updates are available.
So
You say that we should have to do.
yes. So we expanded our hours in 2 parts. So the first part being in December of 2022, we expanded the service hours in Medford and Ashland to be open 7 days a week. And we also lengthened the weekend hours to 5 hours from 12 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. In phase 2, we expanded the evening hours that Medford and Ashland are open until 7 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And so that was the second phase of expanded hours in those 2 branches. And then the hours expansion in the other branches included additional days open at many of the branches, 5 libraries where the day that the branch was open shifted a little bit from one day to a different day, and 10 of our branches open an additional day per week. So on top of that is the 2 additional days in Medford and Ashland. So 12 out of 15 libraries actually saw additional days open. And now all branches are open on a Saturday. Prior to hours expansion, the Shady Cove and Butte Falls branches were the only 2 libraries that were not open on Saturday. So this is just quick snapshot. Here's where we were, baseline hours. We were open. Uh-oh. I have numbers somewhere. It's actually on so if you keep going, yep, base hours. First expansion was just we're gonna work on our PowerPoints matching where boxes are. The second one, so if you look here, our baseline hours were 368 hours. In phase one, we expanded to 388 hours total. And then if you go to phase three, I keep saying we increased our hours by 30%, therefore that's what you all are saying too. From the baseline, it was actually 37%. The 30% is from the phase one hours in Medford and Ashland. So we actually increased more than my math was giving us credit for. So again, we expanded our hours because our community was asking for more hours. Since I arrived in 2018, when did I arrive? Yeah. Really, since the district was formed, but that was one of the very first items on the on our goal list as we developed our strategic plan and all of that. And then COVID interrupted that part, so pushed it out, but we were able to expand those hours and respond to that community request. And we also wanted to be able to be open more hours when our community needed us. And it also is in alignment with that new strategic plan that well, it's not new anymore at the time, was our new plan. And then also we recognized as libraries were closed that our communities really needed libraries as a place to gather as much as for all of the other library services we provide. Some of the benefits or what we expected the benefits of the expanded hours were increases to several of our metrics and our data points that we use. And so this was part of what we're testing today to show you the results of that. And then that last one, we really looked at, if you all recall, during the process of determining what our hours should be, we did some analysis of being responsive to the community, being individual, or being more predictable and standard across the system. And one of the things we found in some of our community surveys was that predictability across the system was really one of the important factors. So as you all know, expanded hours comes with additional costs. And so just wanted to give you a little snapshot of the increase in staffing levels that were required to help accommodate this increase in hours. So the baseline of FTEs, which is a full-time equivalent, so not the number of bodies, but the number of 40 hours per week that adds up to, was 113 at the beginning of fiscal year 23 as we went into this plan. In January of 2023, we had 139.1 FTEs. So that's the new staff that were hired for Medford and Ashland, as well as beginning to ramp up the additional staff so that on April 1st, we're ready for our doors to be open and for staff to be trained and ready to help the patrons. So that's why there's only a smaller bump from January to April of 2023. But we're at that current 144 hours now. That included some increase in our support services department to help support the anticipated expected increase in usage. And the associated costs with those additional staff, you'll see that increased our annual operating budget for personnel, and the projected average monthly cost for fiscal year 25 is $875,000. So that's the background part. Are there any questions about that part before we get into the impacts? Okay. So the first part is circulation. These are mostly just cute slides. So people checked out a lot of books. If you go to the next slide, our increase in circulation. And so we're analyzing a period that's not a fiscal year. Just keep that in mind. It's from April of 2023 through March of 2024. So the first full year of expanded hours, we had over 193,000 initial checkouts that occurred during that period. And our overall statistics include initial checkouts and renewals. We did not include renewals in this analysis because that's not as dependent on getting to the library to check out your item. So we were really trying to capture, were more people able to check out books because of the expanded hours?
So the 193,000 is the increase.
That's the initial
Sure.
checkouts
During the expanded hours.
during the expanded hours, not
Okay.
total.
And then the amount below is talks about full circulation. So full circulation is up by.
During,
So in this next slide, we'll show you a little bit better, and this is why I'm going to send this to you as well. So on this slide, the light green hours, the majority of each bar, that is the checkouts that occurred during our original hours that we are still open at each branch. The light blue, little top of, they look like little matchsticks to me. Those are checkouts that happened during hours we are no longer open. So we did, change some of the hours that were open. And then the goldenrod color is new checkouts that have occurred in our new and expanded service hours. So what this is showing you is that while we did lose some circulation from the hours we took away, that is far outpaced by the additional items that have checked out because we have the additional service hours. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is showing an average monthly circulation before and after the expansion, so of hours. So the average monthly initial checkouts increased from the 58,000 to the 64,000. The renewals also increased. And you would expect that to increase maybe more because we do auto renewal twice for a single checkout. So if you allow it to auto renew both times, you can actually have more renewals than initial checkouts. So the fact that that's pretty much pretty on pace is pretty good. So, and yeah, so that's why I was like, because I was doing the math, it's like, okay, the initial checkouts increased just under 10% and then a 12% renewals. It's because you can renew things more than you can check them out once. In most of the branches, we also looked at circulation per hour. Looking at all my notes here, sorry. If we look at circulation per hour per branch, across the system, and there's not a slide for this, I apologize. In most branches, the circulation per hour decreased slightly, indicating that people were coming in over time more. So each hour may have been a little less busy, which in some of our branches is just a fine thing. Our circulation per hour increased the most in Central Point, Shady Cove, and Talent. So those branches actually saw a higher circ per hour than previously. Okay, so now moving on to library visits. We had 708,000 library visits, which was 164,000 that happened during our expanded hours. And 170,000 more total visits. So most of our additional visits happened during those expanded hours.
These are all physical visits.
Correct. Yeah, these are from our door or people counters on the doors in our libraries. We also looked at foot traffic per hour. And so this marks when somebody comes into a branch. They may stay for more than 1 hour, but when did they come in? And as you see, many of the new visits happened during our expanded hours. And that 10 out of our 15 branches saw an increase in the average number of visits per hour, which is pretty good. The 3 highest branches that saw the highest increase in the visits per hour are the Butte Falls branch, which increased by 60%. That's a 60 per hour. At Talent is a 41% increase. And then Eagle Point came in third with a 27% increase in the average number of visits per hour. The average total across the system, average visits per hour increased from 28.9 to 29.8. So almost a whole new person every hour of expanded hours. We also had this theory that people couldn't get to the library to get their card, so if we expanded our hours, maybe we'd get some new users as well. And that also proved to be true. We have approximately 9,800 new card holders, which is 1,700 more than the same period a year prior to that. Registering new card holders, you all have seen the KPI, the graph, as we've done the statistical reports for you. They kind of do a similar pattern of up, down throughout the year. And we're following that same pattern, peaks in the August, September range, and then in January, which coincides both with RCC student registration, as they are in our system as well. And also when K-12 schools are back to school, they're getting their new packet, welcome packet, and we're encouraging library cards to be issued then as well. And then the final area that we wanted to touch on is our public computer usage and Wi-Fi access. And this is an area where, when I was in a meeting with other library directors and I said, yeah, our computer usage is going up, they were a little surprised because that's not the case everywhere. They are starting to see usage of computers at the library decrease because patrons are bringing in their own device. I learned early in the pandemic that we're one of the only places people can come if they don't have their own computer, and it's continued to be a popular service here. So the dip that you see way back in September, that September of 2021, that was the last surge in the pandemic when we went back to front door services for a couple of weeks that month. So there was no availability for computers to be used. And then that dip in the light blue section is when Ashland was closed to front door services during the HVAC project, which, you know, these time snaps are really fun because it's like, oh yeah, that was a year ago, wasn't it? So it puts things in perspective, but you see, as we went into our increased service hours, usage continued to increase. And it's been a fairly, I mean, if you drew a trend line through that, you know, it's a pretty steady increase over time. And then if you look at the Wi-Fi on the next screen, it's a pretty similar usage pattern. The dip there is in June because we were transferring our software and our license agreement and didn't have a full month of data there. So that is not because of the pandemic. But you see too that the trend of using the Wi-Fi increased somewhat with our expanded hours as well. People use our Wi-Fi when we're closed, but they also use it when we're open because they're bringing in their own devices and using our Wi-Fi from inside the building as well. So here's just some comments that we asked our branch managers and staff, like, hey, what are you hearing from patrons and what kinds of feedback are you getting? You know, mostly positive feedback, and a lot of comments related to noticing that there was an extended or an increased opportunity for school kids with after school hours and specific programs for kids, that it was a particular boon to our youngest patrons. So just give you a minute to read some of those. And that's really the highlight, is have a couple key takeaways here at the end. So 23% of our increase in library visits was during those expanded library hours. Our visits increased more than the physical circulation. So if you look at both computer usage and other things people are doing at the library, all of our new patrons weren't here just to check out books. They were also utilizing other library services. And again, you know, as you saw on that last slide, the feedback that we're hearing from our patrons about the expanded service hours have been positive. and particularly for our students and young patrons.
Kim's got her
Question,
hand up.
were there any branches that did not see significant increases or increases that were consistent with the increases that we saw at other branches?
There are some branches that didn't, like, when we looked at usage per hours open, that their average usage per hour decreased, but all branches have seen an increase in circulation compared to a year ago. So, or excuse me, and in each of the data points, I don't think we have any, and I can double check that, but I don't think we have any branches that overall saw any decreases in the areas that we presented today.
Would you be able to send us a copy of that more like detailed granular data, the hour by hour? And I don't know if you have it plotted with FTE by hour as well, because that would be interesting information to know.
We don't have FTE per hour, but yes, I can send you this presentation, and I can include a slide with the branch by branch detail. And it just, yeah. It was over. Okay. That was the end. I didn't do a thank you slide. I figured by then you'd know it was over.
Hey, one quick question, with like tabling events or other outreach things, other than if DART is there any capacity for doing library cards? If DART isn't there.
So there is actually capacity with any time that we're doing a tabling event, whether or not DART is there. We can have the application, even if we can't actually input it into the system at that moment. We can bring it back to the library and input it into the system, but we are working on processes to be able to have laptops at all tabling events. And excuse me, in the outreach department, we do currently have 2 hotspots that can go out to those tabling events when the DART ban is not there, so that we can sign people up there on the spot. And also we're working on a plan with collection development to have materials from the collection to also then say, hey, now you have a library card. Do you want to check something out? So
Cool, great idea. So if you're actually bringing the application back to the library, are you mailing their cards, or, I mean, how are people getting their?
no, we give them the card right then,
Oh,
write the
okay.
card number on the application, and we just tell them, hey, you can't actually use it until Monday. So that's why we're working on the process to actually at all events be able to say, you know, we have the computer, we have the hotspot, you can start using it immediately.
Yeah, I saw a table at an event I was at recently, and I didn't have time to stop because I was volunteering somewhere else, but I didn't know if they were.
To make sure we always have at least 2, preferably more people at each tabling event, so that there's someone who can be working to get those new applications into the computer. Somebody to be talking to people, and somebody else to be doing whatever else is needed at the tabling events.
And I love the idea of having some folks available.
Yes.
Great idea.
You're welcome.
Quarterly financial report.
Yes, I let Heather take vacation,
Oh,
so.
Already?
I know,
Already?
she had it planned before she started, so
Well, sure.
I let her go. Let her go on vacation, didn't let her, oh gosh, don't take that wrong. Good. I am pinch hitting, and I have Daniel here as backup, so our senior accountant is here if there are any questions I can't answer. But the information is presented to you in the narrative, and then with the reports on each of the 3 fund areas. So you know, bottom line is that we're tracking pretty well and this is through March 31st. So it's a first 3 quarters of the year report, tracking pretty well. We are continuing to do some reconciliation and making sure that all of the credit card information and things like that are recorded properly in our accounting system, but pretty much our spending is on track and our revenue is slightly ahead of where we budgeted, which is good. We don't expect much more to come in the next month or two, but because the majority of our property tax revenue does come in November.
So the column labeled final, that's budget.
Correct. Yes.
The approved budget.
Okay.
You had questions, but you don't have your notes.
Right.
So you're trying to figure out what they were.
That's exactly right, actually.
Try not to ask questions that you've already answered, but okay. Yeah, the grants.
Okay.
Were answered in the narrative. Okay.
Susan, feel free to reach out to me directly. If you find, when you find them.
I mean, one of the things, when I was looking at this, we used to get way more specific data on their financial reports, and then we've gone to way less data. I'm kind of thinking we might like
Somewhere
having
back, yeah.
somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
And I'm not sure what I want added back, but I
Yeah.
think we might think about that at some point.
Heather appreciates your patience as well. I know she's been here about 2 months now, so we're still working together on refining this, and I'm sure we'll start working on a somewhere in the middle. And I've talked to her about that as well, as somewhere in between where we were and where we are. That may be the sweet spot.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm not seeing any other questions on that.
I think that's the end of my section of reports.
Yeah, break for a few minutes.
Not too long.
Okay, so next we have the Jackson County Library Foundation report, and I see Ginny there waiting for us. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. I just am excited to share with you such positive news as we go towards the closing of our year. We've seen our goals exceeded in many cases, whether it be financial goals in Library Giving Day and Giving Tuesday, by a wide margin, and number of donors. And for context to overall giving, I put in some information in that report from Giving USA to let you know just that, giving is in a decline at the moment for a variety of reasons, which are specified there as well. But we are seeing an increase in our donations and our number of donors. So the library is beloved, and our mission to support it is beloved. So that's exciting to see. And I wanted to point out that we too are recruiting for board members. We are sad to say that happy for him, sad for us, that Brian Young has taken a position in Spokane, Washington, as I know you all know, given that one of your board members happens to be married to him and is also leaving. So we're in the middle of doing some board recruitment, and we anticipate tomorrow at our board meeting, we have 3 really fabulous candidates to talk to and potentially join us. So look forward to potentially introducing those folks to you shortly. Carrie and I will be at I always have to think it through, the International Public Library Fundraising Conference And that's going to be in Washington, D.C., June 9th through the 11th. And Carrie and I, along with my incoming board president, Phil Meyer, for the foundation, will all be in attendance. And Carrie and I will actually be presenting. And Carrie, may I share?
Sure.
And Carrie just got invited to be one of the plenary, I can't say that word, Carrie, plenary panel members alongside, I think it's Seattle, Boston, and Chicago public library directors. So we're excited to be attending that. It's always a great conference. We always come back with great information, and I'm excited this year, having gone to it the past 2 years alone, to have Carrie and Phil join me so that we can have a robust discussion about how to use the information that we gain from that conference. I think that's mostly it. Just want to
So
make
we
sure I
did
did.
add a link, Jenny, to your presentation, to your
Sure.
report about the Dolly Parton did do a press release about Dolly Parton Imagination Library coming statewide. So in conjunction with Governor Tina Kotek, she welcomed the state of Oregon to the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. And in your board packet as well is the handouts. If you see any babies, give it to your parents, probably not the baby itself. But we do have the cards to help spread the word about DPIL in your packet as well. And
Thanks, Carrie. I appreciate you catching that for me. It looks like Kim has a question.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the increase in giving. Out of curiosity, are you seeing kind of a proportionate increase in, the number of gifts versus, if the number of gifts have doubled, are we seeing the amount of donations doubling, or are we seeing smaller donations? Just kind of what are those trends?
Yeah, so I would say there's smaller donations, and the number of them are like the number of donations, we have a lot more of them, and they are smaller. They're starting in that range of between 35 and 100 right now. We've been doing, as I think I've mentioned in a couple of meetings previously, we're doing a letter campaign during Giving Tuesday and then at Library Giving Day. And we've been working with a direct marketing company to assist us with acquisition. And we've seen such an increase. In fact, one person I spoke to recently, Kim, I thought was really sweet. She said, I didn't even know there was a foundation until I got my letter. So one of the great things I think that is coming out of those letters is not only the donations, but just the simple awareness of the fact that the foundation exists, which since I've been here has been a #1 piece of the puzzle that has felt like it was missing, is that people just aren't really aware of us even. So I think the awareness is helping, and the specific letter campaign, which does give some options for very specific gifts and starts with that $35 usually, maybe 25. And people tend to give at that level to start with.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
I would just comment quickly. It seems like a number of meetings in different settings that I go through the Dolly Parton Imagination Library certainly comes up with regularity. I was at a chamber meeting recently, and one of the state representatives that was present in that meeting was very proudly sharing the legislature's role in providing funds for that, and happy that it's going on in our local communities.
I agree. I think it's something we can all be proud of. It's a strong program. It makes a huge impact, and I'm grateful to be a part of a community that sees the value and is supporting it in such a strong way, and a state that's taken it on now. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Okay. Unfinished business. With Kim's imminent departure, we are talking about board member recruitment to replace Kim's position. That is a committee of Kevin.
No, we're scheduling right now and we've got about 7 applicants, I believe.
8,
8 now, okay.
and they're good.
Yeah.
Right.
So hopefully we will have a new board member to recommend next time.
Just want, I mean, just want to say that I was pleased that a variety of people responded in different ways. I know, we put on our slider on our website. And we had some of us reached out to people we knew or that may be interested and got, a really solid pool. So I'm really excited to meet the candidates this week and to be able to get to know them better.
Good.
Yeah, it would be great if, I don't know that was on the application form is how people did hear about it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could query people as
That's a good
you're
idea.
talking to them would be helpful for future needs if we ever have one. Thank you for the work on that, everybody.
We're about to start working, I think.
Right.
The fun part
Right,
begins.
not the scheduling, like there's
Yeah.
lots of pieces to get together, so. Okay, new business, amendment to the library district, library foundation, MOU. I guess that is
Carrie and
Jenny and Carrie.
So, we tried to summarize it for you all nicely there in the cover memo, but the relationship committee did work with Jenny and myself to look at what the best way forward with the arrangement and the MOU between the library district and the foundation might be. And the recommendation for you all to consider and approve with the attached amendment is to enter into year 4, if you will, of our agreement between the 2 entities, with the district providing $150,000 worth of in-kind support for the administrative costs related to the foundation. So that would include the staff, the location, and the operating supplies, things like that. Also the in-kind support from other library staff for the foundation. And that this agreement be renewable annually for up to 5 years, as long as the mutually agreed upon return on investment, as we're trying to call that, are favorable. So the baseline that we're talking about for that return on investment is for that $150,000 that the library district provides through that in-kind support, the foundation is raising $165,000. Is that right, Jenny? Did I get that right?
That sounds about right. I don't know that we put a specific number to it, Carrie, but it was.
Yeah, we said around 10%.
Yeah.
Return on that investment. If we invested it at the local government investment pool where we can invest our funds, we get about a 5.5% ROI. And so the foundation being able to provide a higher rate of return than that is one of those benchmarks we use. We also talked about the more intangible benefits of the foundation, being that they are a 501c3 and there are entities that will only grant money to a 501c3, not to a local government entity. Also easier for people's on their tax donations to do that through the nonprofit than through the library. So that's the background and the Cliff Notes version, if you will, of our conversations. And Vicki and Susan, I don't know if you have anything to add from serving on that committee.
That was pretty much the topic of conversation for that meeting, so.
How are we gonna find the 10% extra, the 165,000? Would that be funds raised or would it be another
So we looked at
actual
it.
money spent?
we'd like to do that kind of two different ways because the foundation may raise more funds in a year than the library district requests
Right.
reimbursement for, and so it's that combination, like, for example, Jenny, how much have you received and has the foundation raised in grants for the pollinator project? It's around
13,000 so far this. just this
13,000.
fiscal year.
This year, and we haven't spent any of that yet because the first phase of the project is coming up. Either this month or not until July, August. So we aren't spending that money yet, but it's been raised, so that counts towards that. Because we don't wanna penalize the foundation for raising $150,000 and we only ask for 100 of it. So we don't wanna,
Right.
put them in a deficit because of that. So it's
So the greater number would be the amount they raised, actually.
Correct.
So as long as they raise 165,000, then they're meeting their obligations.
correct. And that's in both restricted and unrestricted funds.
Okay.
And
We're trying to set all of us up for success.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what we talked about were distribution, but we also talked about, as Carrie mentioned, how much we're raising and how much the investments may bring in compared to, as she mentioned, what you might be able to receive in investments through the government funds program that you have.
And I mentioned in the cover memo, but it has been reviewed by both our legal counsel and the foundations.
Okay. Don't need us to do anything additional.
I would like you to move to
Oh,
enter into the amendment, so yes.
So I would make a motion that we approve this amendment to the MOU between the district and the foundation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor,
Aye.
raise your hand or speak, whichever. Let's see. Okay,
Alright.
there we go. Okay. Unanimous, fourth grade. Unanimous. Okay, committee reports, facilities committee, which is that Marissa?
It's Kevin and
Kevin,
yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
And there are
Minutes of page 35. Any questions? I mean,
Anything to add to the
I don't
minutes?
have anything, I don't think we have anything to add to these, we're moving ahead. Minutes, I think. Bring you pretty much up to date. Want to add any?
Yeah, I guess I should add something to the water feature. I did meet with Ryan D. Suttel and how to characterize what we were saying. It's possible to repair it. They don't have a number for how much it would be. He doesn't really have a position either way on it, according to what I saw. It would require some maintenance, I'm sure, as anything would, and the next step, if we wanted to make it, would be to get an estimate on what it would cost to repair, so you could have that to compare with the cost of putting something in to replace it. And that's as far as our discussions went at this time.
So you didn't trigger the cost estimate.
He didn't have it. I didn't know. I didn't do anything.
Well, I'm glad you were able to connect with them because I know that was
Yeah.
kind of next step here. Great.
Oh, so why was it considered a safety hazard?
He didn't mention anything about safety, to be honest with you. There was, maybe. There are some pits below where the fencing is, you know what I'm talking about, Marissa? Some small pits below where the actual fencing would meet the ground. People that were there were dropping in cigarette butts, trash, And apparently some needles, and the workers said that, you know, they didn't feel safe, putting their hands down there, certainly. So that's probably the safety issue, if any.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, since I'm not a part of the committee, I mean, so as part of the consideration, they're just doing something that turns it into blending in with the wall. I mean, does there necessarily need to be some feature added or?
Well, if they were to take it away, there'd be a cost in that.
Right.
Removing it from the ceiling where it's attached actually, and then filling in the cement work, and then covering in where the metal plates are right now. There's a, you know, full plumbing there for the water thing, and all that would need to be decommissioned. And then if we were to take away that, I mean, the proposal probably would be to replace it with some other type of artistic feature, or I don't know how attractive it would look without anything there. I need a parking lot.
Yeah, one might we get some recommendations from our consultants as to like how to liven up the spaces. For example, like what do they suggest to do with that water feature?
So one thing, this has not gone back to the full facilities committee. We can put it on our future facilities committee meeting agenda, so we can come back with more recommendations. When we get the final report from Group 4 for the facilities master plan, I don't know that it would be that granular on what the specific artwork for a specific branch might look like. But I am happy to ask them if they have some recommendations, since this has been an ongoing point of concern for the library district.
Just to see if they have any ideas of what might be. Maybe not real specific, but in general, what we might do in either to make that work better or to replace it with something else.
Yep.
Does anyone else on the board have an opinion on whether we should take it out or not?
Since this wasn't an item on the agenda, I'd rather have it go back to the facilities committee, but if you want to discuss it now, that's fine. Is it fine?
It's fine with me. I don't,
Not really on the agenda. It's not on the agenda, but I think for the point of taking it back to facilities committee, if you want a general opinion. Since we're talking about it.
I guess it's discussion on the board member report.
Yeah.
Or the committee report, but if nobody's gonna say anything, then.
well, I mean, I'd be happy to comment. I personally, I would prefer something other than restoring it up there. And that it be of the absolutely lowest cost, lowest maintenance kind of feature that it is. I mean, and my sense is, I mean, you know, it's kind of a concrete scape in front of this building
Right.
anyway. I mean, it's not a place that I think a lot of public is standing outside of or sitting outside of to admire the things on the exterior of this building, so I would say something that's not unattractive, but something that doesn't require maintenance, so it's not a safety hazard and would be a more permanent solution. But that's my opinion.
I would second that. Thank you, Vicky.
Marissa, any thoughts from you or?
I mean, I guess I just didn't want to get too far in the rabbit hole of just everything that could be done, or, you know, because just in general, we could think about other ways to enliven or recreate the front space a little bit. You know, maybe it could be more of like a meeting center. Yeah, like some of the other branches kind of have more awnings, I think, and they're kind of more conducive to like maybe even doing things there. And I don't know if you have that same sense at Medford, but So maybe you could kind of re-envision the seating, but again, now it's kind of more down the rabbit hole of things. So I think in general, right, we want to see this space just refreshing, but we're not necessarily attached to the water feature if it's too costly.
Right. That's good input. We'll take it to the committee. And we'll see what group 4 has to say.
And do either of you have them? We've expressed our opinion. You could probably do the same.
Well, Kevin hasn't been expressed. I don't have any particular attachment to the water feature itself. So I would like to hear if group 4 has any suggestions for what sort of thing we might do in that spot. But beyond that, I don't.
I mean, I like the water feature just aesthetically, but also in terms of just fiscally, if we can fix it and maintain it, I'd like to see a number on that. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories that we don't have, oh, we can't do it, it's too expensive, but I haven't seen any numbers, and fixing usually is much better than tearing out and replacing with something that may or may not be more attractive. So my goal would be to at least look at the numbers and find a reliable number on repairing and maintaining. Even if we have to pay an outside company to maintain it, it still could be cheaper than a new landscaping feature out there. We'll take that to the committee then.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, the last kind of topic of discussion, future meetings, June 17th will be our regular board meeting. June 24th, the library district will be having a board work session. July 20th will be the library district 10th anniversary party, and we got some information on the plan for that. And one other date that Susan asked that we at least bring up for some discussion today is looking at maybe kind of a time frame for a retreat during the summer months for the board. Obviously desirable that we have a new board member in place with us by that time. So that would probably be after, I would assume it would make sense to do it after the board meeting in July, but.
Right, but we generally do most of a retreat that occupies most of a day to look at where we've been and where we're going and what we think we ought to be accomplishing as a board in the next year. It's not really a library planning event so much as a board planning event. And it would just be nice to try to pick a time if possible. So I don't know exactly how to go about doing that, but.
So it might be easier today, maybe, to say, make sure you get. Or, you know, if you want to throw out kind of a general, this weekend would be great for me. Or if we all send in what dates were not available in July.
Right, if you have dates that you know you're not going to be available in July, and perhaps throw August in there too. We usually try to do it in July, but it has been in August sometimes when July didn't work. So it would be helpful to know when you're not available for such a thing. We have in the past built it in connection with the July or August board meeting in some way. So if you're not around or won't be available for next to either of those meetings, it would be good to know that.
Well, and the other thing I'd like to discuss at some point is that the third Monday didn't turn out to be a really great date for a board meeting because of how many holidays fall on Mondays. So I'd like to recommend or encourage going back to a Wednesday meeting. It seems there's less conflict overall with a different day of the week. So that's something to consider. And at our first board meeting in July, we would be setting that calendar for the year. So just want to put that bug in your ear. So right now, and also because the months all lined up really conveniently for us. Right now, the July board meeting is scheduled for Monday, July 15th, which is early again. But that is the date. So if we're looking at a retreat around that date, that is the date of our next meeting.
That's my birthday. I don't think I. But maybe.
Cake for you, it'd be fun.
Hey, I'm gonna do interviews on my birthday.
You all know how to have
See if we
fun.
make it.
It's great. I appreciate your commitments.
So are we talking about doing this on the same day as the board meeting?
Well,
Or
I'm just saying we had what we've done before, and it was easier when it was like a Wednesday, Thursday, but we've done a combination board meeting. And then a day or a day and a half retreat around that time as well. So I was just throwing out what the current date of our July board meeting is, and then.
so I guess for people looking at calendars, or what days of the week would people be looking at? That kind of is my question, so.
Yep.
Well, if we start by having people just say when they're gonna be gone, that would be a good start, and we can look at it.
It's most helpful if you just send that to me via email, so that it is.
Send it to Val.
In writing.
Writing.
And then they can do this little overlap map and be like, okay, here's a couple of best options. And I know last year the executive committee talked about topics and I started looking for a presenter or consultant to help us with that. And since Kim's on our executive committee, we might want input of someone who's going to be on the board in July, and Kim, if you have any thoughts as you're leaving of like what was really helpful to you. And Marissa too, as a new board member, you know, what kind of information would you find to be most helpful at that retreat? And you don't have to answer these questions now, but those are the things we need to start looking at, is some dates, and then also who might we be able to bring in to provide some training or facilitation of that meeting.
Kim, did you have a question? I saw your hand was up and disappeared, but.
Yep.
Nope, just good. I will not be available after July 1st.
Okay.
Facilities committee meeting, Val, when's the next one? I want to be able to put it right down here.
We confirmed it for June 20th.
June 20th.
You'll get an invite
Great.
probably tomorrow.
Yeah, so the proposed time that's on the page 35, June 20th at 3.
And I would say, I don't recall, although I did the interviews for the board member last year, I don't remember if one of the questions was availability for meetings. I mean, I don't think,
It is.
I mean, if, okay,
It is in general,
Yeah.
so, you know, right now, are you available on the third Monday? You know, we typically meet in the afternoon, early evening. Is there a day of the week that you're not available? So
Right.
we reframe that question a little bit to make sure we get that.
yeah, that would be.
Because that's important for the
Yeah.
new person to be able to attend as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You all are a small enough board that finding a date or day of the week that generally works for all 5 of you is not too hard. I don't want to speak, I'm like, let's knock on some wood, but yeah.
And I would say that at least some of that availability be in person. Be nice.
Yeah. You know.
Yes.
Okay. Any last thoughts for the day? Okay, again, thanks for everybody that was here. Thanks for board staff reports. Thanks adjourned.
Great.
Thank you.